All right, so for the business meeting, this is just going to be very casual. First of all, Rich is the treasurer. He's not available to join us via live stream or Skype this time. And so this is the financial report that he just sent me. This is for 2017. I can't see it on my computer, but let me know if you have any questions about it. This is just 2017, so it doesn't include anything that happened in 2018, but he did put a few notes of things that we've done in 2018 at the bottom. And just for your information, the conference expenses, which obviously are not included in there yet, will be, it's not finalized yet, so I don't know exactly, but usually it should be between $50,000 and $55,000. So if you're just wondering how much it costs to put on, that's where the biggest chunk of our money goes, obviously, is to putting on this conference. So does anyone have any questions about the financial report? Okay. And we will move on. Okay, so as many of you know, we have set up into regions, and so we have regional representatives all across the U.S. and also in various countries throughout the world. And regional representatives just serve as our point person for that region. Some regions are a little more organized and having activities, and some regions are, not so much. But if you would like to be more involved in your regional area and maybe help put together a get-together or something like that, this would be the point person that you contact. This is just the first page. I couldn't fit them all on one page. So this is just the first page. And here is the second page. Yeah, Tracy's on there. Tracy has the UK and Ireland super organized. They have a newsletter. They have get-togethers. It's awesome. So if any other regional representatives want some tips and tricks, talk to Tracy. She's got it put together. Yeah. And if for some reason yours is the only email address that showed up in oh, okay, don't copy that email address. But so if you want to be more involved in your region, you can contact your regional representative. But the idea is they're the first point person. So when someone comes into the organization and would like to find someone more locally, I would give them the name of the regional representative. And the regional representative's responsibility is to try and collect the names of the people who live in the area so that they could give recommendations. You're probably not going to find someone who lives right next door or maybe not even in the same town. But, it's nice if you can find someone that's relatively close that you might be able to get together with or at least chat with. And then, they can also make recommendations on services or medical providers. Or if they don't have that information, they may know someone in one of those states that can help you get that information. So we still need a regional representative for, let's see, let me come back this way. Texas, Arkansas, and Louisiana. So if anyone's interested in that, we still need a regional representative for that. Okay, so then I wanted to go over this little pamphlet and show you guys. This is a pamphlet that was created by, it was actually partially created by Harold Kleiner. He helped putting it together, who was the speaker who spoke on Tuesday. But it's the Letter Case Foundation. They received a grant from the Kennedy Foundation, actually, to create this informational pamphlet that we can get distributed. The idea is to get it distributed to geneticists or those making diagnoses or those first people seeing someone right after they get a diagnosis. And this just gives basic information. And the idea is that the information is accurate and up to date, that this is not outdated information that we're giving them. It's accurate and up to date. The pamphlet has very basic information. It's not, that's the first page, and this is the inside. These are the inside. That was the outside of the bifold. But they're very nice pamphlets, and they're meant to give parents getting a new diagnosis some immediate information and a place to get additional information. And so we're trying to get these distributed to genetics clinics around the world so that, I'm sure you guys can appreciate, it would have been nice if when you received a diagnosis, they were able to hand you a pamphlet about your child's thing that actually led you to another place that had more information. So the pamphlet gives our website, the European, it gives Unique, it gives several different resources for them, but it also gives this, this is a web app. It gives this address to a web app, and all of you have access to this web app, and this is a great thing that you can also give to doctors and teachers or whatever if they want a little bit more information on it. The pamphlet is very basic information, so anyone here already has all the information that's in the pamphlet, but this is going, let me see if this works now. It's supposed to take me to the web app. Oh, it worked last night. All right. We'll come back to that. I'll show you that at the end because I have it pulled up at, oh wait, maybe it's working now. There we go. It worked that time. All right, so this is the web app for understanding a Jacobson syndrome diagnosis. And you'll notice there's a lot of pictures from the last conference because the people who were here taking the pictures from the last conference were taking them specifically for this purpose. So the only thing we came up with is it looks like Jacobson syndrome kids are very active in water sports and live in tropical locations. So like, wow, there's a lot of palm trees and water in these pictures. So they will keep on updating these, and hopefully maybe at the next conference they'll be able to come back and take more pictures. It's like maybe next time we'll take people like to libraries, or because it does kind of look like we party all the time, which is not a bad thing. But there's all these different areas that you can go to. There's an overview, and this just kind of explains the pamphlet. This explains getting a diagnosis, how to explain the diagnosis, how to make plans. And all this pamphlet and everything has had to go through many reviews, because this is now accepted by, I believe, I can't even remember, I can't even remember all the organizations that it went through, but it went through several medical organizations who now accept it as a valid resource for parents receiving a Jacobson syndrome diagnosis. So it's not just reviewed by people within the Jacobson syndrome community, but it's reviewed by people outside of the community also. This family section just gives an overview of the research that Harold shared with us on Tuesday, the psychosocial research, because that's an important thing for families to have when they get a new diagnosis, is understanding that our lives didn't end because we had a child with Jacobson syndrome, and that we are still happy. And there's a lot of great information on education and support, and then we have a medical issues section, which kind of gives the main things that new parents or parents of a child with a new diagnosis should be looking at and getting information on. And then it comes down here to resources, giving links to all of the different places where you can get information, including our website. So anyway, I just wanted to make you guys aware that this is out there. And I will get that link up on the 11Q website so that people can have access to that too. So if I brought some of the pamphlets with us. If anyone is willing to deliver some pamphlets to a geneticist's office, then that would be great. I don't have a ton of them here, but I did bring some pamphlets that I've given to the doctors to distribute too. But if anyone's willing to take them and get them to geneticists, then we can do that. We actually do not own the copyright to this pamphlet. It's owned by Lettercase because they created it, and so we can't change anything in it. It's been reviewed several times, but we can purchase it ourselves to distribute, because our purpose in this is we want people to be more aware, and we want people to receive the appropriate information when they get a diagnosis. We've actually distributed these pamphlets at the national. There's a few different organizations for national or for genetic counselors, and we've distributed these pamphlets at their conferences. And additionally, one thing that we do plan on doing in the future, I've been to a couple of the genetics counselors conferences, because I've been invited to speak there. So they paid for me, but we've never had a booth. And booths at medical conferences are super expensive, but I've talked to other organizations. I have relationships with the trisomy 13, Down syndrome, the chromosome XY group, the chromosome 22 groups. So we have some relationships there, and we've talked about splitting the costs of booths so that we can get our information out too. Most organizations are attending these conferences and doing that, but for us, we're such a small organization that I'm like, oh, you know, the booth space costs like $2,000 to set up a booth there. So in the past, I've been like, oh no, we can't do that. But we actually have one of the genetics counselors conferences had offered all the organizations like ours a discounted booth, and then we can share it. And so that might be something, it will be a small expense in the future, but that may be something that I'm looking into going and doing just so we can get the word out there a little bit more. But we have distributed these pamphlets fairly significantly at some genetics counselors conferences. But yes, we want to continue to get that word out there. All right. Let me get back to this. Okay, so now's the point where I want you to tell me your feedback on this conference. What did you like? What did you wish was different? That's just a nice way of saying what you didn't like. What are some suggestions you have for future conferences? And then we're going to have a little discussion about locations. So this is a back and forth conversation. So don't feel bad about hurting my feelings. If I cry, I cry. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to cry. So I just want to get feedback from you, and we will send out a formal survey after the conference. But you know, here in the business meeting, I want to hear like what you guys liked about it, what you guys didn't like. You know, if we changed something this time, and you're like, oh, I wish you would have left it the way that you did it last time, then let me know that. Or if you wish that we did it one way this time, and you thought it was better than something that we've done in the past, let us know. Yeah, you want to talk to the microphone so we can hear?
People come to the microphone if they.
Kids who have Jacobson syndrome, their talents, like they did last time, the
Okay.
talent show.
Yeah, and we'd considered that this time, but we were a little bit tight on the time for the brunch. But yes, we can certainly add that back in. Go ahead. You like the dinner better than breakfast? Okay.
I'm not even talking about food.
Yeah. Okay.
That was actually Dean's, who can't be here. He said that he missed the sense of there was a little bit more of a family feel with the dinner, but I know that it was hard for at least us as well because it was so late.
Right.
So I don't know if there's a way to find kind of a middle ground. My concern, at least from the kids' perspective, is that because the brunch was early, they were all very hungry. Mm-hmm. And for us, it lasted a little longer.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering if there's somewhere we can find like a little bit of a middle in there and incorporate.
Yeah, and we just tried the brunch this time because a lot of the feedback from last time was people had to leave the dinner early because their kids were too tired and couldn't last that long, especially those traveling from the East Coast who were 3 hours later. But, you know, maybe if we even moved it in, you know, gave us another day into the conference before we had I don't know.
No, it was a great idea. You know, we tried it, and I'm just sharing what, you know, maybe not a late dinner, but an early dinner or something later. Yeah. And then just really, I just wanted to start with positive feedback, but we loved the sense of connection. I mean, this conference incorporated the medical model, but it also really focused on who we are as family, who we are as a community, and it just allowed for even more connection that I don't think we had to seek outside of the conference for. It just kind of happened with more breakout sessions, and so I really liked that piece of it. So thank you.
Thanks. Any other comments? You go ahead, and then we'll have Kate. Okay, go ahead, Kate, and then Heather.
When there weren't any breaks in between from one speaker to the other, it kind of was wow, because we were exhausted when we got here. However, it was absolutely amazing when you stop to figure out, okay, you can take your own break at the end of somebody speaking, you may miss the intro for the next speaker, but it's okay for your own mental health.
Yes, to step out.
And you were able to get so much information in such a short couple of days that it worked out beautifully. And so thank you so much for all your help, for getting all the speakers and getting it all arranged, that I got over being overwhelmed.
All right, well, thank you. And we also have to thank Rebecca and Jessica because they were involved in that immensely too. And you know, sometimes we don't put the breaks in because it's mostly selfishness on my part because it's so hard to get you guys back in here after a break. And I just don't want to start a speaker when there's like 10 people trickled in here. So sometimes we just skip the breaks and then you can just take your own, just simply because, you know, these speakers are invited and they're donating their time. They're not paid to be here. They donate their time, and we want to show them appreciation by making sure that we are present for their talk. And it's kind of disheartening when they try and start and there's only 10 people in the room. So that's why I don't do too many breaks. But, you know, anyone is welcome to step out and take a breather, because I do understand the days get long. I mean, it's so much information to digest that sometimes you just need to step outside for 20 minutes and take a break and come back in.
For me, I don't have another model to compare it to, but I think overall everything went really well. I really appreciated the breakout groups in between the speakers, because for me that almost felt like a break.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't so formal. And it just kind of gave us a chance to talk as parents.
Yeah.
I really appreciated that. And the food was wonderful, location wonderful, everything. But you know, those of us, I come from the East Coast as well, just like you.
Yeah.
It's definitely more of an expense to come out here, but the weather is beautiful, so there's that.
Yeah.
Overall, everything I think was wonderful.
Okay, great.
This was our first conference, so I didn't really know what to expect, so everything was wonderful. I love the poster boards. I know some of you that have done this for many years probably are like, oh, another poster board, or what do I put up? But I think it really shows new parents coming, and obviously parents with small children to adult children, the different varieties and just stages of the kids and what they've gone through. Being my child's a little bit older, I look at the younger kids and go, oh, I remember when we were at that point. So that I loved. Also, I just thought it was so well organized, and how much time and effort that you guys put into this is, I know, has to be overwhelming, so that was great. And the speakers were wonderful, so I'm just excited for 2 years to
I'm excited for you to see you in 2 years.
learn more. And we didn't have this when we were younger, so I think it's just a great opportunity for kids or, you know, parents with young children to learn and see the adults. And I love when the adult children are up there speaking and telling us about them. That's wonderful. But I also agree the talents would be great, because I've heard a lot of the kids have talents,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I
We'll
want
add
to
that
see
back
them.
in.
I know, but like you say, I'm sure it's hard to figure out what to fit in, what to not.
Yeah.
So.
All right, thank you. Real quick, before you make your comment, because that just reminded me of an announcement I need to make. About the posters, we have to have them out of the room at the end of our sessions today. So you can take your poster back to your room, remove all the pictures if you want. You can just leave those in the room and they'll clean them up and take them out, or you can take the pictures off of them here and leave your board. I just wouldn't suggest leaving your pictures on the board because we don't know where that's going to end up. And so I don't know if you want hopefully it's going to the trash, but I don't know if you want your kids' pictures somewhere that you don't know. So before you leave today, grab your poster and take it with you. All right, go ahead.
I'm probably going to be a little repetitive, but I thought the balance this year between information dissemination and breakouts was really nice. I liked the combination of topics that we had in the breakouts, and it was nice that we had lots of different people facilitating breakouts. I thought that was very good.
Okay, thanks.
So we've really enjoyed coming over because it was our first conference. we particularly enjoyed the first session where there were parents talking about their experiences. So whether more of those can be mixed in with more of the sessions, or you know, a particular topic, if then one or two parents can have their input. I think it's quite hard to approach parents in the social, you know, when we have the social gathering, say, well, what's your experience? Because when they're away from the conference room, they might just want to talk about other things. You know,
We talk about our kids all the time. It's all good.
Yeah, there's quite a few I'd probably like to go, what was your experience, you know, however many years ago?
Yeah.
So whether more of that can be put in with the sessions.
Okay.
It just kind of
That's a good
breaks
idea.
it up a bit less intense.
That was good. This was the first time that we had done the parent panel, and it was at the suggestion of our keynote speaker, and we wanted, because her whole thing was to get us understanding that this is a family journey. It's, you know, it's not just about the kids, it's about the whole family. And she was the one who she's like, I want to bring in families. I want them to be a part of this. And so I thought it turned out great. So I think that that is something that we can include a little bit more. So.
We loved it.
Good.
Thank you I'm getting emotional. Thank you very much for doing all this, because especially we have no information or other families to learn from. So it was amazing, everything. And we really loved the adult panel. I think that's,
Yes.
I wish we could have more of that, or I don't know,
That's a staple
a longer
now.
session. I don't know if that's possible, but I agree that more of the parents talking about their experience, that would be awesome. And it's more like a wish than, I don't know if that's possible, but we loved Jessica's speak, and I was looking forward because I watched the YouTube video from
she's
the
always
last
a highlight.
Yes. So I was thinking maybe something more hands-on with Jessica, maybe a workshop or something like this, that she could practically show us
That's a
how
great
to
idea.
help our kids. So maybe that's a wish.
No, that's a
But-
great idea. I like that idea.
Yeah.
I mean,
And-
we could even bring kids in here during her talk and
Oh,
have,
that would be awesome.
have
Yeah.
her like do some demonstrations
Yeah.
of, you know, or just, you know, if we had like little breakout groups.
Yeah, that
where
would
you
be
brought your
great.
kids.
And I would like to thank everybody for being here, because that's what, you know, she said, if we didn't have the adults here and the other kids, I think it wouldn't be the same.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, hi. This is our first time here as well. I just want to say that it's been amazing for Jamie, because we've been very isolated in Ireland, and it's only in the last year and a half that we have met up with anybody else with Jacobson syndrome. And Jamie and Kevin were out playing football, and he said, Kevin is my best friend ever. So it's been wonderful for him, and he can't wait to come back to do the adult panel.
Awesome.
So thank you very much. It's been
We'll be enrolled
brilliant.
next time.
Yeah.
Hi. So I wanted to like did like a group kind of thing, like we did like the Padres game, or like something like that, but something different. Like if we're not in San Diego or
Yeah.
somewhere else. Yeah, I'm just giving you.
Unfortunately, the Padres were out of town this
Yeah.
whole week,
Yeah.
but we'll keep that in mind. That
Okay.
even if we can't do the Padres, we should
Yeah.
do another big group activity.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. All right, I think I've got to cut off the comments there because we got to keep moving so we can get to our fundraising session here soon. But thank you for all of your comments and suggestions. They're great, and we'll hopefully be able to add those in. Go ahead.
This is not on the conference specifically, but when we were you were talking earlier about the regional representatives and people finding out kind of where people are. I was talking to Claire, Kara's mom, and we were talking about, I think when people like go to the web, I think initially, I know for me, initially when we were diagnosed, I had no idea like where there were other kids around the country. And I know we've got our Facebook page and people will put in kind of their name and their contact information, but sometimes that's kind of hard to find. So one idea that we had was on our website, and there are applications like this where you can create like a push pin map, and we wouldn't have to put out like our specific personal information, but even if it said Sydney C in Kansas City, right? And people could put where they're from with their child's maybe name and last initial. We wouldn't have to disseminate exactly who that is.
Yeah.
But it would give people an idea when they go to the website that there are
There are
kids like
people
all
there.
over the place, which may encourage them to reach out and try to get connected.
Okay.
So it's just an idea,
like
and I'd be
that.
happy
Yeah.
to work on that if
Okay.
you want some help
and
with that.
we're hoping to revamp the website here fairly soon. So we'll keep that in mind. And I may be contacting you.
And
All right.
very briefly, just along those lines,
Okay.
to reiterate a couple of requests over the week to get the various PowerPoint presentations on the
Okay.
website or on Facebook.
Okay. Okay, so now conference fundraising. I'm just going to cover this briefly. Obviously, we can't have the conference without fundraising. We are a 501c3 organization, so we are a nonprofit organization. The board members receive no payment for anything. So when you make a donation, 100% of it goes to the organization. And I'm going to have Beth come up in just a second to share with some ideas about how you can do fundraising. If you do want to do a fundraiser for the organization and use the 501c3 number, we do have some rules and regulations that we're bound to by having the 501c3 number. But we've had several parents successfully hold fundraisers that have helped to put this conference on. And so there's many, many people who have helped do fundraisers. And I just want to know, you to know that you can do it. You can do it too. It's not too complex. We do have some rules, and if you use the 501c3 number, it has to be approved, because then it becomes a fundraiser of the 11Q Research and Resource Group, and then you can use the 501c3 number, but you have to be bound by the certain rules that we're bound by legally in using that number. For example, it can't be used to raise individual funds for a family. It can only be raised for the organization. And we have two different areas of fundraising, and Paul's going to go into fundraising for research. But if you ever have a fundraiser using the 11Q 501c3 number and you want to say half of it to go towards the general 11Q count and half of it you want to go towards research, we do have a research account within the 11Q organization that we use to donate money directly to Paul's lab. And so you can there's a couple ways that you can do the fundraising for Dr. Grossfeld's research, and he's going to go into that just a little bit after this session. I guess I kind of already talked about that. But we also offer sponsorships for the conference. And so we have, this year we have Vivint Gives Back and the Home Mag as our sponsors. But if you have, if you work for a company or a business that might want to sponsor us, we have sponsorships for businesses at all different levels. And we also have individual sponsorships for the conference. And, you saw we have signs with their names on, and their names are on the T-shirts and everything. So if you have a company or anything that might be interested in that for the next conference, let me know. We have a nice pamphlet that Beth has created for that. Did you have something, Jessica?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Good morning. Sorry I was late. I think it's worth noting to people how much it costs to put this on, because I think you did that. Okay, I was going to say, because, we try to keep costs down for families, but it's so high, and I think we can't overemphasize how much help we need in raising the money from
like
the
I said
families.
before, this conference will come in somewhere around $50,000 to $55,000 is what somewhere in there. I'm not 100% sure yet because I haven't paid all the bills yet. I got to do that today. So I'm not 100% sure where it's going to land exactly, but somewhere in that range. We try and keep it low. We try and keep it low so that families can afford to come, because we know the hotel room costs a lot of money. Yeah. Yeah. But, most people are paying airline tickets and hotel to get here, and then some people have rental cars. There's a lot of individual expenses that come, so we try to keep the registration prices low, and we try to provide as much food as possible, because we know that you guys are making huge sacrifices to be here, and we want to make sure that as many people can come as possible. And we do every time we do have, part of the fundraising that we have goes towards scholarships, so we do offer scholarships every time. And so, we don't have a ton of them, but we do offer some scholarships every time. Okay, so now what can you do? How can you get involved? If you'd like to be more involved in the organization, which we would love for you to do, Beth is our fundraising chair. And so she can, if you'd like to be more involved in the fundraising, you can talk to her. Krista Walsworth is in charge of our newsletter, and we haven't had it in a couple of years, but she's willing to get going back on that. But it's a lot to manage the newsletter. So if there's anyone who would be willing to step up and be a point person for the newsletter, we try and do it either we would ideally like to have it 3 or 4 times a year.
So
But-
Krista actually said that if she'd be happy to do it. I just talked to her the other day about it, but she just needs people to submit information to her or articles to her that she can put in.
Yeah.
So she'll be happy to actually get it put together.
Okay. And so if there's anyone who would like to help Krista with that, maybe, she can maybe put it together, but helping her collect articles or information. In the past, we've done like 11Q spotlights. So each one we would have, a couple kids spotlighted and their families would write something up about them. We'll have a write-up about the conference, an update on research, and information on fundraising. So if anyone would like to be involved in that, talk to me after and we can let you know. Conference planning, if anyone would like to be involved in the next conference planning, you can let me know that too, because we can always use extra help. Awareness and publicity is another area that you can help in. And finally, Rich Siritz is our ever faithful treasurer. He has actually received a promotion at work and has less time, and so he's going to be stepping down as treasurer, so we are going to need a new treasurer. Now, this is something that actually is it's not the super easiest job. There is a little bit of stuff that goes into this, and you do have to become a board member, which means you would be you'd have to go through background checks and screening and everything, because as a board member, you're involved in financial decisions. So any financial decisions we make gets passed by the board. And so if there's anyone who has a background in either banking or accounting or something related to finance and would like to volunteer as a treasurer, Rich said he was okay, he can continue this for the next 6 to 8 months or so, but eventually he would like to turn it over. He's been doing this for 8 years, so just keep that in the back of your head if you have any of that expertise and you'd like to talk to me about it. How much time? So I think it kind of ebbs and flows, but when there are fundraisers, it's a little bit more time intensive. We do get checks quite frequently that he has to take to the bank and deposit, well, not necessarily take to the bank, but deposit. He takes them to the bank because the bank is actually in his same office building. But, there's things, it involves keeping track of all the monies that come in, all the monies that go out. He keeps track of receipts. We have to be able to acknowledge donations with tax receipts. So it's time intensive, but not so much that you can't have another job with it. But you may have to put in maybe, I would say it would probably average out to maybe 3 or 4 hours a week, if even that, maybe not even quite that much. Just because every time something comes in, you have to deposit it, make sure it gets recorded, do the financial reports, file the taxes, and make sure that anyone making donations gets their acknowledgement and tax receipt.
I should have brought this up to you privately, but I'm wondering if we could, if that's too much for one person, ever consider dividing responsibilities?
Absolutely. We can divide. Yeah, we can divide the responsibility. But like I said, it's a board position, so you have to be willing to be background checked and whatnot. But you can talk to me later if that's something that interests you, as getting involved in the thing. And finally, just before we end, I just wanted to have Beth come up. Beth is our fundraising co-chair, and I just wanted to have her give you a little background information on what she does and how you can help her and some ideas for fundraising.
Good morning. One of the things that I do is to make sure that, is that better? Okay. One of the things I do is make sure that any of the fundraisers that are going to be held actually follow the guidelines for the IRS for the 501c3 designation, because if we do things that are outside of what the IRS thinks is acceptable, then we could lose our designation, our tax-free status. So I know it took Lindsay several years to actually get that put into place, and so that's something. Pardon? So that's one of the things that I do. Another thing that is just like for some easy examples of, examples of some easy fundraising things, Elise actually had her birthday party this year. Rather than getting gifts, she asked for people to make donations to Dr. Grossfeld's research. And so not everybody did that. She's just turning 8 years old, and there were some people who were like, well, all kids like toys. And we're like, really? She has enough toys, and she doesn't really play with toys. So we really wanted the money to go to Dr. Grossfeld. So that's something that's really super easy, and I know that some people have done those as fundraisers online as well, like through Facebook. Another thing would be like the t-shirt sales. I've seen some of you wearing the t-shirts that had just the Jacobson Syndrome 11Q with the research logo on the front of it. And so that brought in like $1,500 or so, and it was really super easy to set up. And so if anybody's interested in doing that, again, we can get that started again as well. Another thing is Don Carzoli has had some very successful garage sales in which she has raised thousands of dollars. So luckily I used to live near her, so I contribute to that as well. But mostly that was something that Dawn did that I think it was kind of time intensive for some days, but it's not like an ongoing huge thing. And she raised thousands of dollars. She's got really nice stuff, I guess. And some other things were, if you, anybody use Amazon, right? Pretty much everybody, right? So if you are not on the Amazon Smile account yet, you can actually designate, go through smile.amazon.com, and that actually will send a portion of your, how much money that you spend will actually go to 11Q if you designate 11Q Research and Resource Group as your, as the designate for your, for whatever your purchases make. So that was, Rich had that on the slide that Lindsay pulled up, that I think in the last quarter it was like over $500, and that's something that, oh, it was for the year, okay, so.
Just shopping.
Yeah, and so it's like something you're doing anyway, so you might as well have the money. Yeah, so and it's not just you. I mean, you can ask your friends and family to sign up for 11Q as being their designee as well, and that would just raise more money that way as well.
The prices are the same.
Pardon?
Prices are the same.
Yes, oh yes, it does not increase your prices at all. That's just something that Amazon does to give back. And so it does not increase your prices at all, and you still can use Prime and get your free shipping. It makes absolutely no difference. Bravelets is a jewelry company, and they also, we have an 11Q link on their website if you're interested in purchasing any jewelry that, depending on, they'll give at least 10% back to 11Q Research and Resource Group. And again, it doesn't cost any extra money, but you can get jewelry through them if you're going to be buying any kind of gifts for people. It's a nice thing to be able to do. And then, as Lindsay mentioned also, I have a sponsorship packet that I've made up, so if you're interested in having somebody who you know or your organization that you work for be a sponsor for the next conference, I've got this pre-made package. I mean, it'll be updated for the next conference for next time. But I think that, do you know offhand how much the sponsorships were that they purchased? So like $6,000 came in through sponsorship packages just for those two organizations that were kind enough to support us. So, and so that's pretty much it. And then I'd love to hear if anybody else has some ideas. Oh, we did have some more ideas. One of the moms contacted us and suggested having a sponsor for the day for Dr. Grossfeld's lab. And so we are going to be kind of getting together with him to try and figure out like what that might look like. So she suggested, because we were looking for a certain amount of money to raise every year to keep his lab going, that to have like a $500 as a day sponsor. And so we haven't managed to get that going yet, but because he's been really busy and we've been really busy with moving, but that's something that we hope to get going as well this year. And so that would be something as well if you would like to honor somebody or as a memorial for somebody who's passed, that's a nice thing as well. Another thing is that people can donate money directly through the 11Q website. And it can be, you can put on there that it's in honor of somebody or as a memorial as well. And so one of the things I would like to see on the new webpage, when it's updated is to have those types of memorials actually, and not necessarily the amounts for the donations, but to have something that acknowledges that people have made donations in memory of our loved ones who have unfortunately not made it. So.
I just wanted to ask about logo branded stuff, or whether there's a logo we can use. Or
Yes, if you do one
do.
related with the 501c3, then we do have the logo that you can use.
Okay.
So one quick thing that I forgot to, I just skipped over this. The location for our next conference, I don't know how I just missed that, because that was one thing that I really wanted to talk about. We've had lots and lots of requests to maybe have a conference on the East Coast, and I just wanted to get your thoughts about that. My thought is that maybe we have an East Coast one in 2020, and then 2022 we come back here, and then the 2024 we maybe have a Midwest conference, and then 2026 back here. Does anyone have any thoughts on that? Great idea? Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, for the speakers, so, you know, we essentially flew in over half of the speakers this year. So, you know, we figure if we get somewhere, I mean, if we did it like, say, in Atlanta, where I live, I would have some contacts that we could use for speakers and stuff like that. We would most certainly fly in speakers also, but from here.
I guess my only concern would be to have about the researchers. One of the reasons why we come is to make sure that at least can be included in the research that's going on. Mm-hmm. So that would be something to think about.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we would do, is we would just fly them out there.
So they'd be willing to come.
Hopefully, I mean.
Okay.
All right, we've taken up too much time, so I want to turn the time over to Paul for his research presentation. You have your own computer, right? Yep. I'll just do mine.
While Dr. Paul is setting up, I just want to publicly acknowledge how much Lindsay does for us. It's really easy for us all to say, oh, I don't know how you do it. And it's kind of in the same way that people will say that to you. Well, you don't have a choice, right? You have a parent with a disability, and you just have to soldier on and do it. Rebecca and I helped her plan, but Lindsay still had the bulk of everything on her shoulders. And she has 4 children, for those of you that don't know, 2 who have Jacobson syndrome. So it's not that she has any more time in the day, any more hours. It means that her kids are sitting with iPads while she's on the phone with someone. And, you know, her kids are not getting her attention while she's doing this. And every year, I mean, she's been president, I don't remember how long it's since I've been here, 14 years, okay? It is an unpaid position, much like motherhood, where, you know, she's doing so much for so many, and really, you know, a thank you, it just never feels enough, but I just want you to all realize, like, all of this happens so flawlessly every other year due to Lindsay, and, you know, if you really are loving this experience, we would love to have more people help. You know, there's the childcare, which Joy very graciously took on this year. We have the picnic, even, which is a huge task of finding the vendor who's going to supply the food, and the bouncy houses and rental chairs. And, you know, we could really use help with all of those things. So I put it out there to you that rather than just thanking Lindsay with your words, show with your actions that you want to jump in and help with some of this. We are all busy, but she makes the time, and her kids suffer, and her husband gets a little less attention, and, you know, she does this for all of us. So just keep that in mind. Thank you. Thank you, Lindsay.
How about, in keeping with our discussion before, everybody stands up and stretches for a couple minutes? I think at least that's a reasonable break for a minute. Jump up and down 10 times, whatever. All right. Well, while you're doing that, I do very personally want to thank all of you. As many of you probably remember, towards the end of the last calendar year, I posted a memo on Facebook appealing to all of you, telling you, and this was absolutely the truth, that if I couldn't get more funds in, I was going to have to potentially either shut down my lab or cut my number of researchers down from 2 to 1. So you guys stepped up, in an incredible way. And the great news is it's kept my lab going for 2018. The daunting news is that I'm going to be faced with that same situation by the end of this year. That's just the nature of the beast at this point. But again, I can't thank you enough for doing that. And so what I wanted to do, first of all, before I forget, I really want to thank Rich Sieritz. For those of you that don't know that, like what Lindsay mentioned, Rich has been the treasurer for like the last 8 years. And you know, when you're a 501c3 group, to get donations to go, let's say, straight to my research, there are a lot of obstacles, and you've really got to mind your P's and Q's to make sure that you're in compliance, or I think as Lindsay said, you risk losing that 501c3 status. And I can tell you, I am the worst person when it comes to paying attention to details about what rules to follow, but Rich has done just an incredible job to help me and the group navigate all of those obstacles, as well as Jay Henneberry, whose law firm from LA was the one who originally set up the 501c3 status. So I think, and that was through Lindsay's initiative when she became president. So those are huge, huge accomplishments that really kind of raised the level of the professionalism of this group and has made a lot of this possible today, okay? Before I talk about, well, what I wanted to do is give you some kind of, at the risk of boring you, a little bit about the gory details of what my lab operation entails financially, because I think I owe that to you who have been supporting my lab, to give you complete transparency. So when I ask you for money, you know I'm not using it to go out and buy a new car or something. So I would never do that. I've never actually bought a new car in my life. One other way for people that do want to donate, at least as of now, directly to my research, I have a website that some of you may be familiar with called littleheartsbighopes.org. If you go to the giving link, that takes you right to where you need to go to make a donation through UCSD. That goes directly to my lab account, basically. And just so you know, UCSD, and I think we're going to hear in a few minutes as well as for Radies, has 100% support concept, meaning there is no overhead. So when you make a donation, every dollar goes directly to that cause, to the research. And that's really pretty extraordinary. When you think about, and I'm not saying this in a negative way, but let's say the American Heart Association, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think their overhead is something like 20-something%. So, you know, 80 cents on the dollar versus $1 on the dollar. And I think that's just an incredible policy that really helps to incentivize people. And by the way, if you want to stop and ask me questions at any time, please do. So just to give you a little bit of an idea about how I run my lab, I think I showed you that picture the other day, and you met Lizu and Lou, who are the two full-time PhD researchers that are spearheading the cardiology research, which is what my lab is focused on. And so on a yearly basis, it costs about $165,000 to cover their salaries and benefits, which when you think about the years of training and education they have, that's a pretty paltry amount of money for that kind of qualification. My lab uses mostly genetically engineered mice, which costs me more than my mortgage for my house to keep them housed and healthy. As you can imagine, it's not a trivial operation in terms of veterinary costs and everything that goes into maintaining humanely the animal colonies. And then depending upon what experiments we're doing, on top of that, there's another $25,000 to $50,000 per year that just covers kind of the basics, you know, test tubes and all those kinds of lab supplies. So what that means is that every year, my annual budget, and by the way, this has nothing to do with my salary. I do not get any money to do research in terms of my salary. But to cover everything I just told you on a yearly basis is somewhere around $225,000 to $250,000 a year. So just to give you a little bit of detail about how do I come up with that money? Well, it's been variable over the years. I've had some grants over the years, thanks to Craig and Rebecca, for about 5 years, thanks to two extraordinary fundraising events on the set of How I Met Your Mother. They raised $300,000, and basically that $300,000 covered me for about 4 to 5 years to allow me to basically pay for one of those two people. Well, as you know, How I Met Your Mother ran out 4 years ago on top, and coming down here really should be on top. Since How I Met Your Mother completed their incredible run, Craig and Rebecca each calendar year at the end have spearheaded a continued end of the year fundraising effort. And thanks to Craig and Rebecca and continuing the now former cast and crew of How I Met Your Mother, they have continued to raise somewhere around $75,000 per year over the last 4 years. And that's just been amazing. And I think and I'll give you one example of that in just a moment. There's an incredible family in the Los Angeles area, the Hertz Family Foundation, for about the last 5 or 6 years now, without a single question asked, has given me $50,000 a year, so that's been incredible. And then numerous other relatively smaller organizations. There's a family who lost a child with hypoplastic left heart syndrome, the Michelle Dyke family. They lost a child about 10 years ago, and they have really stepped up and are very passionate about wanting to do whatever they can to support my research. There is a company here in San Diego that some of you may have heard of called Cubic that has a foundation, the Zabel Foundation, that has over the last several years supported me. American Heart Association, I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a moment, but I have a grant that's running out this year that was about $100,000 a year for $75,000 a year for the last few years. There was a little bit left over. Technically, it ran out at the end of last calendar year, but there was a little bit of money left over, so that's covered me a little bit this year, and then some other kind of miscellaneous remaining funds, including the money that you guys, through your various incredible grassroots efforts, have done, has brought me up to that $225,000 for this year. But the American Heart Association, for example, that grant runs out as of effectively the end of this year. So basically what that means, and I'll come back to this in a moment, but that there's about a $75,000 deficit I have to try to figure out to cover that moving forward. And this, I think many of you were aware of. Jennifer actually did this for the second time this year, where she really just poured her heart out. And unsolicited by me, she did this. She took the initiative. I think she contacted Craig and me simultaneously, and she's just been incredible to raise awareness and financial support. So I think, Craig, you're going to send this to her just to let her know how much she knows she means to all of you guys. The 11Q Spain group has also stepped up in some pretty significant ways. For those of you that don't know, they started their organization a few years ago. They've had 2 conferences as recently as last year, and they've raised some support to help specifically some of the cognitive and behavioral research that you've heard about. And then most recently, the 11Q UK and Ireland group has begun to do some fundraising efforts, and I just want you to know how much we really appreciate that. And I really hope all of you, it's still there, get a chance to see the unbelievable newsletter that they put out. I mean, I can tell you in the 20 years that I've been involved with all these groups, that was the most incredible, thorough, comprehensive newsletter, and I hope maybe we can sort of join forces. I think it'd be nice just to have one newsletter under one big umbrella, but I mean, I think I owe you an applause. And yes, that is a lot of work. That doesn't happen by accident. So moving forward, like I said, I'm going to be, unfortunately, as of right now, faced with the same situation of having to maintain what I've had each of the past years. So even, like I said, if I can maintain what I just showed you on that previous list, because my American Heart Grant runs out this year, that's already a $75,000 gap that I have to try to figure out to overcome. So to give you a little example of what my world is like in terms of applying for grants, there was another American Heart Grant that I applied for earlier this year, specifically on some of that really exciting hypoplastic left heart research that I told you about. So the good news is that it got a higher score than any other grant I have ever submitted for a first-time submission. A lot of times they'll turn you down, they'll give you some comments if you're lucky, and then you get to resubmit. So the good news was it got a 24th percentile ranking, which means it was in the top quarter. And actually, when you think about the American Heart, most of those grants are really for more adult cardiology-related projects. So that was, kind of a validation that they really embraced the concepts of what I shared with you guys on my talk on whatever day it was, Monday. The bad news is, because it's so darn competitive, they only fund the top 7% of grants, which is, that's just brutal. Now, interestingly, American art used to have a more liberal cutoff that in the past, that 24th percentile probably would have been funded. And so, you know, that's the world we live in. And I can tell you, there's a lot of time that goes into writing a grant and submitting it. It's not like just, you know, copy and paste. I mean, it is a very labor-intensive process. And so, you know, it's always a dilemma for me. Do I want to spend the time to apply for this grant, even though realistically something like this, you know, the odds are extraordinarily low that it's going to get funded. So it's always a trade-off for me whether or not I want to take the plunge for any individual grant. So I know some of you over the years recently, Lindsay, and I still have to look at that, have sent me links to potential funding agencies, and I don't want you to think I'm blowing you off, but I'm always trying to weigh, do I want to really put in that kind of time investment when the cutoff is realistically going to be very, very difficult. So, you know, the problem is, here are my two people from the lab. If I can't maintain this funding, then again, I'm faced with this situation of probably having to let one of them go by the end of this year, which I really don't want to do. So, moving forward, hopefully we can maintain those sources. Craig and Rebecca hopefully will continue to want to reach out to the How I Met Your Mother family and keep that going. Yes, I'm definitely... Bring it on. Yeah, you need another show. I know you're trying. It's like applying for grants, like we talked about, right? It's about as frustrating and heartbreaking, isn't it? You put your heart and soul into it, you're so proud of it, and then they say, sorry. So, for no logical reason either. So, having said that, I'm continuing to apply for grants. In fact, just in the last few weeks, I submitted, I think, 3. We're working on 1 right now. I think you sent that letter off this week, or will be. And I want to take this time now to introduce Laura Lavoie and Andrew Nunn Miller from the Rades Foundation. I'm going to ask you to come up here. And I spoke a little about this the other day. So Rades is the freestanding children's hospital that's affiliated with UCSD. So that's where I see all my patients. So there are kind of two, they'll present this much more eloquently than I can, but there's, you know, the hospital budget to do all that. But then there's the fundraising entity, and that's the foundation. And so I can't even tell you how honored I am to have the two of you here, because this is really turning a new page. This is the first time in the 17 years that I've been at Rades where people from the foundation have expressed a lot of interest and support to rally and get behind what we are doing. And so, because of that, I have a few things for you guys. Do you have the, yeah. So I know you guys know the Sulpizios. So everyone in this room has heard this story. The Sulpizios have their own little, oh, you guys are too nice. They have their own little family boutique vineyard. They only produce 200 cases a year, and every time we've had this conference, they have very graciously donated wine for speakers and other VIPs. I'd also like you to give that to Steve if you wouldn't mind too. Assuming you guys like wine, if not, I'll gladly take the bottle back and find another purpose for it. Oh, okay. All right, so I'm going to turn that over to you guys now. I don't know if you have something on a PowerPoint or you're, okay. Then I will shut that down. Thank you.
Can I pick this up, or is it going to squeak like the other day?
You can use this this one if you want. It
Okay.
allows you to
I don't
and
like
just hold it.
So I'm Laura Lavoie, and this is Andrew Nunn Miller, and like Dr. Grossfeld said, we represent the foundation at Rady Children's Hospital. And thank you all so much for what you're doing. We really admire and appreciate everything that you're doing to support your kiddos and this community and Dr. Grossfeld's work. And we know, because we are fundraisers by profession, that it is not an easy job, and sometimes it is really frustrating, and there are lots of walls that we run into. Sometimes we see them, sometimes we don't see them. No matter what, they hurt, but we pick ourselves up and we keep going, because what we're doing matters, and it matters because of your families and your kiddos. And so thank you. It's a really great honor to be invited to be part of this community. And so we just wanted to talk a little bit about the hospital and our foundation and how we can work in partnership with you. We by no means want to compete with you. Everybody has the same goal, which is to resource the wonderful, brilliant people, you took down your slide of your lab, who are making a difference in the fight and whose work is going to change the future for kiddos and families who are dealing with what you guys deal with every day. Rady Children's is, for those of you who don't know, the only children's hospital in San Diego. We take care of 91% of the sick and injured kiddos in San Diego. That's unique. Most metropolitan areas, major metropolitan areas, have several options, and we're pretty much it. We also have 50% of the kids in Riverside and Imperial counties, which are our neighboring counties. And then for specialty care, we have families from all over the world who come here to be taken care of by our experts. Do you want to talk a little about genomics?
Which piece of it?
All of it, or do you want? All right. I pretend I want to share, but I don't want to share. The thing that we're most excited about at Rady Children's in the last few years, and I think Dr. Grossfeld talked about this a little bit the other day in his talk, is we launched our Genomics Institute at the hospital, and we have an institute within our organization who is focused on decoding babies and children's genomes, figuring out what conditions they have as soon as possible, and changing the course of treatment for each child based on their specific diagnosis. So even within your 11Q community, we understand there is a variety of different genetic underpinnings for what's going on, and not every kid looks like the next kid, and not every symptom is the same. And at Rady Children's, we now have the technology and the brilliant people power to look at what your kiddo's genome is telling us, and in many cases, figure out how to change the care that your child receives. This is a revolution in medicine. It's a revolution in pediatrics. And Rady Children's is the only organization that's using genomics to impact clinical care immediately. Everywhere else, it's a research operation. You send in the test, it comes back in 6 to 8 weeks if you're lucky, 5 to 6 months if you're not. At Rady Children's, we can turn around a genome sequence in, standard is about 3 or 4 days. We can do it in as fast as 19 hours if need be. We actually have the Guinness World Record for those who are excited about things like that. We're more excited about what that means for our kids and for our families, that we're able to provide answers to scary questions. More than half of the babies who pass away in a NICU die from an undiagnosed genetic disorder. And if we're able to look at that baby's genome and say, this is what you have, sometimes we don't know what the cure is or the treatment is, but even having an answer, and having an answer early, can change the course of that family's life. So our goal is eventually to be able to sequence every kiddo that walks through our doors. That's going to take a while and a lot of money, and insurance companies who are willing to reimburse, which they're not. But right now, we're focusing on really promising research like Dr. Grossfeld's, and that's how we met your hero. He is participating in a project that Andrew and I have been working on that's been powered through the Genomics Institute initially, and we started learning about hypoplastic left heart syndrome and the overlap in the patient population for Jacobson syndrome, and the idea that there may be a genetic clue that could one day, soon or not soon, either way, it's exciting, be able to diagnose and stop this before it happens is, I mean, there's nothing more exciting than that, right? And so we have gotten to know Dr. Grossfeld and his work through this initial partnership because of our Genomics Institute, and we're just really excited to be part of your collective family and help raise the funds that are required in order to fund the research, to find the answers, to then implement interventions, cures, everything that everybody is searching for.
So I just want to say that I'm our associate director for foundation relations. So essentially, I submit grants and build relationships with other outside foundations that want to support the different work that happens at Rady Children's. And Paul mentioned that this is the first time in sort of 17 years that folks have expressed interest in his work from the foundation. And I just want to point out that foundation essentially was, for a very long time, it was more of a community entity, very much based around asking for needs. And we've really grown into an entity of about 50 employees now. And over the past few years, I've been there about 5 years now, and we're really getting into impact investment, right? How can investments from different donors of any level, from $1 to millions of dollars, make an impact on different work, on Paul's work, on other researchers' work, on the day-to-day operations, on everything at the hospital. And so it's a really exciting time to combine that with genomics and different cutting-edge work to really help support folks like Dr. Grossfeld, really, because he's obviously been very entrepreneurial on his own and with groups like yourselves in really making this thing work. But we want to really help raise the potential of that, and so that he's not, so that we can really just take it to another level and help him succeed, and take the passion that you guys have and help connect all that together, right? And like Laura said, it's not about competing at all. We're here to just help support any way we can.
So my role in the foundation, there are about 50 of us at Rady. I work in the individual giving team. I work with families and family foundations who are able to make larger contributions over longer periods of time. Andrew works with foundations at every level, community foundations, national foundations, family foundations. We have a whole team that works with community organizations like yours. We have a team that works with businesses. Basically, whatever anybody is interested in doing to support the work of our brilliant researchers and clinicians, we have people who specialize in that area. And so we're just kind of tag teaming and learning as much as we can about the work that's being done so that we can help connect people who are passionate about the work that's being done with the ability to give and change the future. And I'm going to get this statistic wrong, maybe you know, but something like 90% of philanthropic dollars come from people, from individuals like yourselves, from family foundations, not the AHAs of the world. They are important, but the vast majority of philanthropy comes from people with big, huge hearts who care about something, that are connected with somebody who's doing something amazing that only they can do. And so, like Andrew was saying, we don't want Dr. Grossfeld writing grants. We want him in the lab solving the questions that only he can do. Like, there are a lot of things that most of us can do, but there are some things that only a handful of people can do, and we want them to do that and not this. So that's basically what we're here to do. And we're here to offer to be a resource. You were talking about donating your birthday party. We have a mechanism for that too at the hospital. If anybody's interested in that, we have our own Rady version of GoFundMe pages. We call them Miracle Makers. If anybody's interested in doing that, and we can have funds that are raised through that to go directly to Dr. Grossfeld's lab.
100%. Similar to what he was saying, 100% of the donation goes straight to his work. We don't take overhead or anything like that.
And if you know anybody who has an interest in research, who loves your kid, who has the ability and the heart to make a big impact, but you don't feel comfortable having a conversation about giving, call me. This is what I love doing. I'll sit down with anybody and talk to anybody about the way that their heart and their ability can make an impact and change lives. And obviously, Dr. Grossfeld can do that too. And I intend to take him on dates with potential donors so that we can talk about really what the future is. Because that's what this is about. Like, the future is in sight. And this is the first time, so I've been at the hospital for 4 years, and I got here just as the genomics revolution was starting. But I work here because my now 6-year-old was born 9 weeks premature, and the staff at Rady Children's and the NICU saved his life. And so I have this amazing opportunity to give back. And it's not just giving back to buy machines or test tubes, and all of those things are necessary, but it's bigger than that. It's this vision that we're together gonna cure diseases and make life better for kiddos and families that need it. So that's what we do, and thank you again for what you do, and if we can help, call us. We have our information here. Dr. Grossfeld can find us, and if anybody has any questions, we'll be around until after your last session, which we're probably bleeding into, so we'll stop.
Thank you guys so much.
Does anybody have questions now? Get them while they're here. Or comments. Wait, can you go up to the microphone? They got it.
San Diego area or other places as well.
Do we meet with people outside of San Diego? We would be more than happy to. It will take a little coordination, but if there's somebody who has the ability and the heart to make a big impact in what's happening here, yes, we will make that happen.
Have interest in Paul's work, like you said, you've forwarded him links before. He can send those to me, and I'm happy to review those. We have a research team, and my specialty is looking into foundations and cultivating them and talking to them about different people's work. So I'm happy to look into those and help support his work through that. Yeah, please.
I will come give you my card and come take yours. Thank you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Thank you. Let's have a conversation with Lindsay afterward and figure out what the right solution for that is. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
So this might be kind of a dumb question, but do you provide support for people who are trying to figure out how to run fundraisers at all?
Events?
Yeah, events.
We do. It depends on where you are.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think we do event support outside the region.
Yeah, not as much outside of San Diego.
Yeah.
It's like our event team runs their own events, and then there's a group called the Auxiliary at the hospital, and that's volunteer fundraisers in the community of San Diego area who run their own third-party events for Rady Children's causes. But they tend not to, I don't know of cases where we've kind of gone outside of that.
Yeah, so I wouldn't necessarily expect to have somebody actually help run an event, but
to advise on
to help figure out how to get one going, right?
Yeah,
I think for a lot of us that's kind of tricky because we don't really have an organization around us in our local communities to help us figure out how to do that. So that's kind of why I'm asking, would there be someone who'd be willing to just have a phone conversation about
Yeah,
how
I'm
to
sure we could
run
find
an
someone
event?
from our community team that would be helpful in
Okay,
that.
thank you.
Where are you located?
Really convenient.
Come on over. I was just there for a conference for all the top 25 children's hospitals. We had a conference there in May. Really good barbecue.